Hi there, welcome to another video from me, Claire Downham, Transformational Coach, taking you step by step from stress to inner peace. And tonight I'm going to talk about fear. I'm going to start with some of the things I used to share a while ago, really, kind of a bit of a whistle stop tour. I'm impressed I said that. I usually get tongue-tied of fear. So we are only born, so they say, with two fears, two sort of innate natural fears that babies are born with, and those two fears are falling and loud noises. So they're the only two things we're born with. I'm not sure how they know that, other than by testing babies when they drop them, which sounds really bad. But you'll definitely notice that if there's a loud noise, a baby definitely startles, and I assume they take that as being a sign of fear. But they're the only two things that babies are frightened of, and that we are born with as an innate fear. And every other fear that we have, ever, has to come from somewhere else. It's not something that's innate to us. It's not something we're born with. So where does fear come from? So if you can imagine that when you were little, or when any child is little, what is it that parents use to get children to avoid dangerous things? So for example, if a small child is about to stick their hand in the fire or run out in the road, a parent will often use their voice as a loud noise to warn that child off doing that thing. So the parent unknowingly, probably, most parents probably don't know that that's the only fear their child was born with. The parent's using a loud noise to help the child to associate something that the parent wants them to understand is dangerous with something the child is already innately fearful of. So the child is already fearful of a loud noise, and then the child associates fire or sticking a fork in a plug socket or running out in the road with that loud noise. Unfortunately, parents use loud noises, as in their voices, in a lot more situations than where basic safety is involved. So, I cannot deny shouting at my children at various points in their lives, bless them, and most of us probably were shouted at, particularly if you're kind of my age, because I think there was, a bit of shouting went on back in the day. Teachers as well, God, they used to shout too, didn't they? So shouting, so then what happens in the little person's brain is that we begin to associate all sorts of different situations with fear. So we sort of grow up growing more and more fearful as we get older. So, but once we've kind of established this kind of background idea that fear is coming from, it's learnt and it doesn't exist before it's learnt, what you have then is this concept of a human being as a blank piece of paper, like we're all born completely clean and free from rules and fear and all those other things that we've learned, and limiting beliefs and goodness knows what else. And then over time, like I've said, lots of different things are written onto that piece of paper. What to be afraid of, what to think about ourselves, what's okay, what's not okay, what are the rules of life, etc, etc, etc. But the lovely thing to know is that you never become the writing on the paper. You are always the paper. Underneath all the writing, underneath all the things you've learned, there really is you. So where does fear come from now? Maybe you've got some ideas about that. Where does fear come from for you? What kind of things create that fearful feeling? Fear's got a real job to do in our lives, in actual fact, or it did have when we lived in a world that was full of clear and present danger. So back in the day when we were cave people, and when we were more animal-like, I suppose, and lived kind of, a more simple life, we absolutely needed fear to protect ourselves. So for example, if a lion was coming after you or another wild animal, you had to run away from that, or you had to get your wooden spear and fight it. So at that point, that fabulous hormone adrenaline that was spoken about before would start to flood through your body and fill your body up, and its job, the adrenaline's job, is to get you moving, or to give you that extra strength. You've probably heard of those stories where some mum picks up a massive object off their child or something because they get this amazing strength from having the adrenaline. So the adrenaline's there to give you extra strength, to give you speed. Sometimes it causes you to deposit the contents of your body so that you can move faster. It's got jobs to do, and it's that the reason for it should really be clear and present danger, actually something there that is going to kill you or eat you or rip you to pieces or whatever, or do the same to your family, I guess. And that's what happens in the animal world still. So other mammals, which are very, made up similar to us, they experience that pumping of adrenaline and cortisol when they are actually in danger. So for example, the zebra hears a rustle in the bushes, knows that there's a lion there, and starts running. So as soon as it's got that awareness of something's coming to get me, all that adrenaline and cortisol starts pumping through the body. The zebra starts running away, and it's that gives them that ability to run faster. And on a good day, the zebra, well, it's not a good day for the lion, obviously, it's a good day for the zebra. On a good day for the zebra gets away, and the lion doesn't get his dinner, and the zebra just forgets about it, really. Very quickly, he's all calm again, or she, and it's just stood on the savannah eating the grass, not really thinking about the lion, not bothered about the lion. But of course, human beings are much cleverer than that. We can get ourselves into that fear state just by thinking about the arrival of the next lion. So if you'd been chased by a lion, you would probably spend a lot of time after that looking for the next lion and being very wary of that next lion. And when through that script we have learnt lots of things to be afraid of, we end up with a lot of things that we can think about that can create that fear response in our body. So fear of something that is real, there and then happening to you, is absolutely important. So for example, if you need to get out of the way because there's a car coming or something, or you need to actually address something that may hurt you in the present moment, then that's what that's for. That adrenaline comes in and you're off and you're sorted. And actually, that's a really good point there that I've just had a bit of an insight into. In that moment, adrenaline has a purpose in the present moment to get you out of danger. So my little story about that is that last summer I was walking along this path. It's called the Carveley Millennium Way. It's near my house. And I went for a really long walk on my own, and I ended up in a field. And in the field there were cows, mums and babies, and I didn't know when I set off down the field that there was also a big bull. Now, it's a public footpath, so I was entitled to walk through, and I did think it was strange just to start with, because as I went into the field there was a mum and a baby right near the gate, and they didn't budge at all. They just didn't seem to be bothered by my arrival. They didn't move out of the way. So I set off down the wall, and after a short, I got sort of halfway down, not even maybe halfway down this wall to the next gate, and the bull started mooing top volume, and the cows turned like he was going, "She's over there, guys." And they all started to walk towards me, but they were not quite just walking, they were doing kind of trotting a little bit, and they were getting closer and closer, and I could feel I could feel my heart starting to beat in my chest, and I could feel, you know, that kind of sense of, okay, this is not going well here. Now, fortunately, that it was just a stone wall, and I actually no barbed wire or anything, and I managed to climb over it and go to the other side. And luckily, just sheep in the other field. That was great. Got over to the other side, carried on walking down down the other side of the wall. But unfortunately, when I got to the bottom, I had to cross back into the original field to get back to the gate, to get back on the path I wanted to be on. And as soon as I stepped into, so the cows had kind of ignored me then because I'd gone over the wall. They got bored of chase, they didn't want to chase me anymore. As I got over the wall, it was very, very muddy. I don't know if you remember last summer, it was a little bit wet. It was really muddy, and my path to the next gate was quite muddy. Anyway, I set off and walked just briskly and firmly towards the gate. And by the time I got through the gate, fine, but the cows had already started moving towards me. And when I got up the other side of the field, they were they were all surrounding the gate that I just come through on the other side of it. So then I carried on the walk, and unfortunately, then I came to another field which also had cows in it. And this field I had to walk right down the middle of. There was no real way round the edge of this field. It was not, the path went right through the middle. But I took a deep breath and centered myself in the moment and looked at the cows, who seemed to be just a bunch of young, not babies, and there weren't mums and babies. And I just kind of went for it, and I was fine. I got through this side. I'll have to admit, I still have a bit of wariness now about cows. I have to remember that not every situation around cows is going to be the same, and anything else from the past that I'm taking into the future isn't real. And it's taken me a little while to kind of allow that to melt away. So, but that heart beating and the stuff that was happening as the cows ran towards me, that was kind of made sense to me. I could be in danger. The cows can be a little bit cross when they've got babies. They don't want people near their babies, but what that helped me to do was have the wherewithal to find my way out. So in that moment, I didn't really think massively about it. I just went over the wall and got away from them, and that's what it's for. It's to give you the strength to climb over a wall or do what you need to do to get yourself safe. The trouble is that then what we do is we can create that level of adrenaline pumping, and worse, of course, just through the power of thought. And that's like obviously humans have this wonderful thought ability. It's like a curse and a blessing at the same time. I'm not sure in which order. And what happens is we think about something that we think is frightening in some way, and it doesn't have to be necessarily something physically dangerous. It can be something that we're concerned about doing, like getting up on a stage and speaking, all those other things. And through our thoughts, we begin to create a reaction in our body and cause adrenaline and cortisol to start pumping. So when you start to feel your heart beat faster and you get the sort of sweaty palm feeling, you might get the butterfly feeling, that is adrenaline that's sort of trapped in your body. The adrenaline needs you to fight something or run away from it. And it's kind of running around your body going, well, where's the tiger? Are we running yet? Where's the lion? Where's the bear? And because none of those things are actually there, and because you don't need to fight something or flee something, because there's nothing there, it's all just in here, your body gets overwhelmed with adrenaline. And that's where things like stress come from. It's where things like panic attacks come from. It is just all that trapped hormone inside your body. And we can do that by hooking into all sorts of different thinking. So the future is the main place, I think, where people create fear and it looks a bit like this, that what we tend to do is, from the moment where we are, we look into the future and we create sometimes more than one scenario of how the future is going to go wrong. And we base that a little bit on the past. We base it a little bit on, well, all our previous experiences, things that have happened in the past. We base it on kind of how we think the world is. We probably get a little bit of evidence from around us, from what other people have maybe experienced, or what other people are saying is going to happen. And obviously at the moment that's absolutely rife, because the uncertainty of, the decisions that are not ours to make and what's going to happen over the next few months is definitely taking people away from peace of mind, really. We take all those bits of evidence and we create our concept of the future, and we make it look really hard. Or we make it look really fearful, and we make it look really difficult. And so you end up with your concept of the future being up here in terms of difficulty level, in terms of horror level, in terms of awfulness level. It's up here somewhere. And then we think about ourselves in that awful situation that we've created, and we think that we will be down here in terms of capability level, in terms of ability to handle what's going to come our way, in terms of how much we think this thing is going to hurt us and be painful for us. And in this gap sits fear. That is fear. If you think you're a bit not very good and you're not going to cope, and it's going to be beyond your ability to cope, and then you've created a future that looks really scary, then of course it looks awful. It looks like it's going to be horrible for you, and that's where we create these nightmares for ourselves that look really difficult to cope with. And the really good news is that you're making this up, and you're making this up too. And it's just by realising that. And it doesn't happen overnight, trust me. But just by realising that you can only be making up the future. We're not able to time travel. We think we can because we do it in our heads, and it looks really, really real. It looks like it's really going to happen that way. And we can take lots of bits of evidence from our environment that say, yes, but it happened like this last time, and so has experienced it like this, and the news is saying it's going to look like this. The word recession is being bandied around a lot at the moment. There's all this evidence, so I know it's true. I know my made up version of the future is true, but it isn't. It's all made up. And not only is your concept of the future made up inside your mind, but also even the concept of you in the future is completely and utterly made up. If you look back through your life to all the things that you have handled so many things, you have got through so many things, and I'm not saying they've all been easy, because they haven't, but you have, moment by moment, got this. You've handled those things in the present moment, in the now. When you try to go off into the future and handle things that have not happened, that's when it just looks impossible, because your brain can't comprehend how it can address something that doesn't exist. It's so confusing for the brain to cope with, because you're asking the brain to go sort something out that isn't happening. So the brain's like caught in a confusing loop almost, where it's looking to go solve something, but there is nothing there to solve. But of course, even just through that thought, we can create a level of very high level of uncomfortable feelings in our bodies. And then there's kind of more layers to it even. So if we get caught in that kind of fear cycle, and we start to think there are certain situations where we are going to feel that unpleasant feeling. So, for example, if somebody is struggling with being in public spaces with lots of people or something like that, then if we think the fear is coming from that place, what we will then do is start trying to avoid those places. So if we think the shopping centre or the supermarket is what's creating that unpleasant feeling in our bodies, then we might start trying to avoid that place, because we're kind of preempting that we're going to feel the fear going into that space. So you almost end up with a fear of experiencing fear. It's like another layer of it. And I've come across this quite a lot when I've helped people who've had phobias of things like flying in particular, but also sort of claustrophobia, fears where people's fears are going to be visible, they think, to other people. So someone who has a fear of flying will often have a fear of the fear turning up, underpinned by an idea that they will be judged by others if they're sitting kind of sweating and crying and, you know, very emotional and visible to other people as being full of fear. They get very caught up in. So of course, when you're fearful of the fear turning up, you've got like another level. So of course what happens is, if you're already fearful the fear's going to turn up, then you're starting to feel fearful, and you're attributing that to the aeroplane as well. So, and of course none of these things outside of us can really create fear inside us. So even in the moment when, if you were chased by a lion, for example, it's still it's still a little bit in the future, because the fear is driving you to get away from the lion, but it's a fear of what would happen if the lion caught you that's getting you to move. So it's still the thoughts about the lion and what might happen to you because of the lion. But at least that's got an element of really getting you away from a real situation. I've completely lost my train of thought now. Don't you love it when that happens? You're like, just shows the fluidity of thought though, doesn't it? That it's there 1 minute and then it's gone the next. And that's a great thing to know about this, is that if you have a fearful feeling in your body, it's butterflies, it's heart pounding, it's palm sweating, it's whatever else it is that you physically experience, it is never the thing outside of you that is creating that fear. I've regained my train of thought. Because none of those things have the syringe of adrenaline that's going in your arm. That, you know, that's what would have to happen for something outside of you to create fear in your body. Something outside. So a lion potentially would have to come up to you with a syringe of adrenaline and go, right, here's your adrenaline, now I've definitely given you the fear. The aeroplane or maybe the air hostess would have to have a syringe of adrenaline to put into your arm, but they don't have that. The credit card bill we might fear arriving, or the fuel, but whatever else we're fearful of. None of those things have an adrenaline-filled syringe. So they can't really create that feeling inside your body. So I know you know what I'm going to say about where that experience comes from, that it just comes from our thinking. It comes from thought in the moment. And right at the beginning I said that's the amazing thing about humans. It's like a curse and a blessing at the same time, that what our thoughts can actually do, they are so powerful. And there's nothing to do but to shine a light on that. That is the joy of this way of understanding these principles of psychology that are happening to every human all day, every day, whether we like it or not, is that there is nothing to do other than realize it's happening. Just like we realize gravity's happening. But we don't need to do that consciously. We just kind of get on with life, not breaking things because we know about gravity. When you know this is how you're working, when you realise, okay, I've got an unpleasant feeling in my body, it's not able to really tell me anything about the outside world. I'm noticing my thinking isn't very positive about that particular external circumstance, but it's just my thinking, it's just the thoughts that are taking me away from my well-being. Then it's really easy. It's simple but not easy. It's a simple understanding that there is a little bit of a choice about where you choose to have your thinking go. There's not really a choice what thought turns up on a moment by moment basis, but you don't kind of have to stay with that thought. You can just kind of go, oh, not nice feeling. Maybe there's a not nice thought hanging around there. But when we think it's the outside circumstances, we end up trying to change those. So I've treated clients for fear of flying who haven't flown for years, because what they did was, aeroplanes are causing me to feel unpleasant, so I'm just not going to get on one. So they've lost years and years of fun going on holiday because they haven't been able to get on a plane. So they've just taken that circumstance out because they thought the circumstance was creating the fear. I'm really frightened of planes. No, you've just got some thinking about aeroplanes that's taking you away from your peace. People will do other things. So I mean, I've talked about some quite big fears there, but even just, I know it is seen as a big fear, but getting up on stage and speaking, or doing a live video, or anything else that you might not be doing, going shopping, whatever it is that you're not doing, because of fear, is again trying to change your outside circumstances. And that's why I think sometimes, where obviously anxiety is fear, created by fear, often when people are struggling with anxiety, their worlds can get smaller and smaller and smaller. Because it's almost like there's a part of us, if we're already in quite a fearful state, and we stop doing the thing that we thought was causing that problem, then it's almost like our mind will find something else. So I've seen lots of people who've gone from one fear to the next, to the next, to the next, and their mind almost just keeps finding more things for them to be afraid of, and they're caught in a trap with that. Because they've almost got into a loop with it. There has to be something out there to be afraid of. So they end up moving from one fear to the next, and then kind of ending up with more of a generalised anxiety. And generalised anxiety is fear-based too. It's just fear of the future. It's worrying. It's worrying. And bad stuff happens all the time because it's life and we're human and that's normal. Stuff isn't always going to be hunky-dory. But let's deal with that when we get there. If stuff's going to go wrong in your life in the future, just deal with it when you get there. Don't give away all the joy that exists in your present moment by living in fear of something made up that's going to happen in the future that the made up you isn't going to be able to handle. You've got now. You've only got now. We're kind of making up the past a bit too because we related to that through our thinking when it was happening. You know, we've made up an experience of the past. We're using it to inform a made up experience of the future. If I say made up once more, you hopefully get it. That it is all made up. Moment by moment we're making it up. And when you realise that, there really only is one place to be, and that's the present moment. That's the only place there is. Just the present moment. It's the only place, it's the place where joy is, it's the place where peace is, it's the place where happiness resides. Do the future when you get there. Some stuff you don't like is going to happen. Some stuff you love is going to happen, but it's all going to happen at a time when you're ready to deal with it, when you're actually there. Even Doctor Who travels through time, when he gets to a place, he does the present when he's there. Even he doesn't live in the future and the past. So as I always say at the end of these videos, there's nothing to do. Just to listen, just to hear what you hear. And just take away what you take away tonight. And sometimes it might help to go back, listen to some other videos. Just keep allowing it to drip. It's like melting an iceberg. Bit at a time, bit of sun at the top, just letting it melt really slowly. But it's worth staying in the conversation and staying with it, because once you understand this on a deep level inside of you, there's an awful lot of peace to be found. And that is the peace, is the place where all the best stuff happens. Inner peace. That's where the best stuff happens, when you're quiet. Then you can make the best decisions in the moment, not based on some made up future that you've frightened yourself to death with. So, as I always say, take care. I will be here this time next week, and I'll probably pop up at some other point in the group at other points in the week. So absolutely do enjoy the rest of this week, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you at some point. Love to hear what you think in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this video and watching it, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.